And Jonathan, there's clearly a lot of complex wording around the announcement, but the important headline to know is that Staley is stepping down from now, from the 1st of November. CS Venkatakrishnan takes over as the CEO. I suppose the timing and the abruptness of Jes Staley's departure will be a surprise to those like you who follow the banking sector here in the UK. But the fact that he is going, maybe not so, because the conversation around succession had been taking place for a long time.
Yeah, morning. Absolutely. It is definitely a shock, without any doubt, because we were talking about succession this time last year. And let's not forget, his tenure hasn't been without controversy, for example, the whistleblower scandal. So I think the market has begun to kind of think, well, maybe he will do another couple of years. The positives, I guess, one, clearly Barclays isn't going to suddenly return to the sort of darker days of, OK, we're a retail-focused bank, a la the Jenkins era. So the guy they're replacing him with, 20-plus years at JP Morgan, clearly the capital markets focus will continue as well. So I guess we won't be worried about sort of a huge shift in strategy. But yes, it is, without a shadow of a doubt, a poor reflection, I guess, on the board as well. If the regulators turned around and said, look, we are very uncomfortable with this, and they had chosen not to after what's come before.
OK, yes, it's been interesting. The board has stuck with Jes Staley and his characterization of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein for a long time. And now this is the latest interesting developments. We'll see what comes. Jes Staley to defend himself in this, it seems. Let me ask you about the man who's to take over, CS Venkatakrishnan. You mentioned there about what this tells us then about where the bank is going to go and won't go from here, Jonathan. This is somebody with a real background in risk management. And one of our profile pieces just in the middle of this month talked about how when he was at JP Morgan with Jes Staley, incidentally, was somebody who spotted that whale, the JP Morgan whale that many others didn't. What do you take away from his appointment then?
Well, as I say, I think the key thing is that we're not suddenly going to sit here thinking we're going to get a massive shift in strategy, because the last thing you'd want in this environment is to be refocusing heavily on UK retail. And clearly, as you say, he's got a very impressive track record in risk management. And if you look at, even though trading's normalising, you look at the last quarter, you look at the last sort of 5 or 6 quarters, the driver for Barclays, what's bailed it out completely, has been the investment banking and the trading exposure that, if you recall, Sherborne Investments was so keen to get Barclays to downsize. So safe pair of hands by the looks of it, and I suspect that beyond the initial shock, and as I say, a somewhat poor reflection on the board, given the whistleblower scandal, etc., I guess his 9 lives run out.
Right, OK, so that's the reflection on what this means for the board. You mentioned there around Sherborne and the activist investor that had been trying to force change at Barclays, Jonathan. Do you think that's completely behind them? Has that been settled? I remember when we spoke to Jes Staley just a week or so ago about results, and my colleague Mark Cudmore asked Jes Staley about, how do you rub up against the US giants, when you've got this investment bank and a European retail operation. And he was defending that and saying that it was great to offer a counterweight to all of the big US investment banks, and actually clients like that sort of diversification of using Barclays as well. Do you think that has been settled?
Yes, I don't think this changes anything. I mean, the last 2 years have demonstrated the wisdom of that strategy. Whether some relationships with certain corporates will shift because of this, that's obviously impossible to say. But as I say, if you look at the replacement, very safe pair of hands, a very good track record from what sort of turned out to be the preeminent investment bank globally. So I don't see any particular reason to worry beyond the initial surprise of was the board wrong to allow this to happen.